People who take out their phones to record strangers who are having bad days. Why? I would also love to know. I'm a dwarf and I get random strangers filming me and taking photos all the fucking time. Whether I'm having a bad day or not, they are guaranteed to turn it into a bad day. Edit. Since this is getting a lot of attention, thought I'd share an interview with Eugene Grant, a columnist for The Independent who, like me, has achondroplasia and lives in the UK. It also shows some footage he took of assholes who pull this shit. Especially the ones that use filming you as a threat. I was just doing my job one day when this customer got extremely upset because she wasn't getting her own way and got her phone out and stuck it in my face and started filming. I really wanted to grab it out of her hand and launch it as far as I could, but luckily I didn't take the bait and kept my job. When I did first aid at my last job, the asshole who pulled out their phone to start filming was the person who was designated to call 911 and go wait for the ambulance. I would usually take the phone from them and dial 911 on speaker and hand it back to them so I could talk, then go, "Okay, now go wait for the ambulance and bring the paramedics here." They were usually so unbalanced that I grabbed their phone, they didn't have a chance to object. So, now I have someone taking care of the paramedics and the asshole filming is gone. Don't be that guy. Nobody respects you. Me and my friend were wearing our bathing suits at a water park and one of the staff members was taking video of us. So, I went up to him and freaked out, demanding he show me he delete it. We were like 14 at the time and he was probably like 50. Now that I'm older and wiser, I should have reported him to the water park. I did it once when I saw a lady slapping the shit out of her boyfriend in public. I was only taking photos while having a stroll when it happened, and I thought that the cops would be right along. She eventually stormed off. He noticed me and started screaming at me to delete the video. I explained that it was evidence that he didn't start or participate in the fight, and he calmed down. Cops never came, we went our separate ways, and I deleted the video. I would have done it for anyone, no matter who. I don't even think about uploading it for people to snicker at public freakouts. Because likes and views fill the void in insecure people. Fake internet points. I had a migraine at Disney Springs and was trying not to cry in pain, and some dude tried to sneakily film me. I glared at him before covering my face and turning away so I would a significant other like to know. I'd like to ask this to the teenagers who filmed a close family friend's body after being hit by a train and then shared it on Facebook. His 14-year-old niece had to see it. I'm not an advocate for violence, but boy would I love to give one good slap across the face of the person who did that. I have never done this, but I assume the reason is because once the person's soul is captured inside your camera, you can harvest the dark energy from it for spellbinding purposes. Because people figured out that if your own life is shitty, you can feel better about yourself by seeking validation from others. I can see the merit of filming someone's bad day if they're talking it out on service industry workers, etc. Sort for controversial for the real answers, by the way. I saw some creep taking a video of a homeless woman in Seattle who was obviously having a bad day. I confronted him and his response is, "I'm sending it to my wife who is a nurse." Yeah right, dude. I'm sure she would appreciate all of the laughing you were doing while recording it. I'll never forget that. If you see something, speak up for someone who might not be able to. You're not allowed to have a bad day in public. It's an unwritten law. If you have a bad day, you have to hide it completely and pretend everything is fine. My wife and I came across a couple of people filming a man who was clearly having some mental trauma and coping with drug use. Police were attending and it was all good. My wife stands right in front of their cameras and causes a huge scene, calling them out for their shitty behavior right in their own videos and in front of a busy grocery store. As a confrontation avoider myself, I have never been so proud and amazed by her. She's great. Edit. This was in a smaller Canadian city. Not that we don't have policing issues ourselves, but not to the degree the States does. It was not an escalated situation by any means. The man was having an emotional breakdown, not acting super erratic. They walked away pretty ashamedly and there were plenty of witnesses around to not need video footage. One time I witnessed a car accident. A public domestic that transformed into the male hopping into a car and screeching away the wrong way down a one-way street into oncoming traffic and crashing at moderate speed. As the woman related to the male in the car collapsed at the side of the street weeping and screaming, I called the emergency services to get help. Out of 50 or more people on the street that day, only one person called 999. More than 20 people lined the road to film and gawk instead of help. I was a little sick of humanity that day. Bad days come and go, but WorldStar content is a thing of joy forever. If you do it to retail workers who can't retaliate or leave without losing their jobs, then fuck you and die. I've never understood why the first response to anyone else's tragedy would be to take out your phone and record it. Ex-deaf people of Reddit. What was the most underwhelming sound, respective to your expectations? My friend was deaf and he said the most underwhelming things were opening something carbonated, and a dog bark, and the most surprising things was lights not making noise and for some reason trees not making noise. When my uncle got cochlear implants, he spent the whole next day wondering what this constant, obnoxious, ugly, noise was. After hours of searching, found out it was the clock ticking. He questioned why the hell it needs to make noise. I suppose without having it tuned out, it would be pretty annoying. On a happier note, when he first got them in, he cried with happiness when he realized his brother sounded different than the nurse. My dad was born almost 2 months prematurely and it forever affected his hearing. He was easily 50 plus by the time he finally realized he needed hearing aids. I'll never forget being in the car with him stopped at a light, when I could see this annoyed look come across his face. What's that noise? What noise? That clicking sound. What have you done to the car? You mean the turn signal? It makes a noise? There was a thread along these lines at some point in the past and I remember someone commented that they were surprised the sun didn't make any sound. My sister refused to get hearing aids for the longest time. She finally got some and she said the first thing she noticed was like a weird popping sizzling sound. It was the carbonation in her soda. I was 90% and 75% deaf at 6. After surgery I recall crying at the vacuum cleaner for a while. It was significant other loud and the noise overwhelmed me. My friend said grocery cart wheels making a sound was both surprising and irritating. I've worn HA all my life though until around 2010 they had always been analog so not very good at picking up little sounds. I was being fitted for my first pair of digital HA and kept hearing this odd noise even asking my audiologist what's that noise? Turned out it was me moving my feet on the carpet. I'd never heard that shifting around sound before. Got newer and even better ones a couple of weeks ago and holy cow I now hear all sorts of noises I've never heard. Technology can be a wonderful thing. Edit. Wow, what a response, thanks for the awards and the questions. Also, remembered another sound, the bubbles popping in a soda, Coke. Never had heard those little fizz pops before. When I got my hearing aids, I remember sitting in my room and think it was pouring down outside. Went to have a look, dry AF. Turns out it was the sound of my clothes moving against each other. So overwhelming. Now, the silence is more anxiety-inducing, because I know that there's so many things around me that are happening and I don't know about them. I got hearing aids at 31. The sound of the refrigerator surprised me. I'm an engineer by trade and was trying to figure out why it made such a terrible noise thinking it must be broken. Oh man. Where's that guy with the story about going to a deaf college and hearing everyone's insanely loud fucking with the windows open because none of them could hear and didn't realize how loud they were? I can't imagine the level of embarrassment one of those poor kids would have had if they'd gotten cochlear implants in the middle of the year. Not totally deaf, but when I got my hearing aids, I heard leaves crunching under my feet. I stood there and crunched them for a while, in awe. I got a Baha bone-adhered hearing aid implant this February. I'm 29F, moderately hearing impaired for the past 15 years. I'm still surprised by clothing rustling, my own footsteps, my stomach making quiet gurgling sounds, the sound when I scratch and itch, squirrels running across the roof, smile, rain picking out individual instruments in a song. I hate that I now hear chewing and eating sounds, farts. I used to only hear the loud ones. Peeing is significant, other loud background TV noises in businesses. Used to just be white noise for me. Now that I can parse speech, it's super distracting, random neighborhood sounds. E.g. children yelling, dogs barking, weed whackers, etc. And the sound quality of music is kinda meh via my implant. Still 50,000x worth it. My father-in-law always had terrible hearing until he got hearing aids a few years ago. Like a few others in this thread, he was amazed at all the bird noises. He revealed that when his wife used to talk about how lovely the birdsong was, he used to think, geez, give it a rest, Mary fucking Poppins. He's also been notorious for ignoring the, your seatbelt is unbuckled, beep when he starts driving. The tension would build palpably in the car, as everyone else waited for him to put on the stupid seatbelt and stop the horrible noise. Eventually someone would crack and shout for him to put it on. I thought he was just being a deliberate dickhead, but turns out to him the beeping was just very soft. A friend of mine is female, important point, and was a deaf woman who accepted cochlear implants. What surprised her the most is that her breasts didn't make bouncing noises when she walked. Not deaf, but moderate hearing loss. When I got my hearing aids I was shocked that I could hear other cars while driving. That and the TV was a lot louder than I realized. The beeps and boops that a hearing test make are so underwhelming. I mean, this thing that I had a ton of anxiety about that I previously couldn't hear, were soft and unlike my expectations. For all I knew when I was deaf, these were the biggest, most important test, and they weren't loud or obvious to me when I could hear. My hearing is still impaired, but only at certain frequencies, and it can be really silly. Sirens that everyone else find annoying I've never minded. My daughter has had hearing aids since the age of 3 months old. She is now 7, and 4 months ago received cochlear implant surgery. Even with hearing aids, she had never heard a bird chirp, or a plane overhead without it being pointed out. Then she could focus and hear it. But passively, could not hear it. She now tells me when she hears the birds and it melts my heart. Not what you were asking, but a happy dad story. Edit. Wasn't expecting awards and 1,000 upvotes. Thanks all. When I first got hearing aids at age 6, I was riding in the car home and first noticed the sound of the car. Then I started rubbing my jacket, and realized that my hand rubbing on material made a sound too. My mom turns around and says, "Stop that, why are you rubbing your jacket so much?" I responded simply, "I can hear it." She instantly started crying. I once heard from a deaf person that he always was told farts do make a sound, so he tries to not fart around people. I imagine deaf people think they're pretty loud considering they probably get looked at every time they fart loudly.